Well, this is a little update on our 40-ton LG installation. Right now we've been working on the sheet metal and there's been a delay due to this little pandemic outbreak thing that's been shutting shops down. Our sheet metal shop that originally fabricated the panels and we put it together and assembled everything out of 20 gauge sheet metal. So they closed down, all their workers left in fear, and there's nobody there to do any sheet metal work. And luckily, definitely, we had an iron worker who was working on the supports that you see down here for supporting our cross bracing for under the ceiling. Because this is only styrofoam roof. That's the only thing holding this up is pure styrofoam. There's no iron in there, there's no wood in there, there's no kind of support. Basically giant Lego blocks, 27 feet or 28 feet long, and they're held in place by compression. The screws we added, because as you would cut out, literally sections, small sections wanted to fall out that are not supported. So we added screws. So just the sheer strength of the retention of the sheet metal screws on the top and underneath from the bottom are the only thing holding in that square section wants to drop straight down. So we have added support there and a support there and one over to the far side. And so that travels clear across there. And then we have one support going from one I-beam straight underneath here, pushing up on this section that wants to fall through and welded to the other section, and the same goes to the other side. So what I'm standing on is now securely supported. But this does have a high load rating without cutting out. It literally is load rated for 200 pounds per square foot on this roof of weight load that you could put on this with just styrofoam. It's not even glued or screwed together, and it's that strong. So it's surprisingly strong. But getting back to our sheet metal scenario, for you guys and watched my automotive channel for just the automotive content, you wouldn't know this, but sheet metal is constructed in a certain manner of overlapping and locking seams that you put together, and then you put some mastic on it, or in the trade it's called pookie. There's a sealing mastic that goes inside here as a gasket that gets crushed, and then you put your mastic on the outside because it has to be airtight. This is only 20 gauge. Sometimes they use even 22 or 24 gauge metal. It's really light and flimsy. But since we do not have a middleman right now, and we have our iron worker do it, well, the iron worker said, oh, I could do that. And coming from the point of view of being somebody who's an iron worker, I immediately known when they said they could do that, how they would do it, because I was going back to my pre-teens and middle school and high school metal shop and metal fabrication. And when I asked him what he was designing, this is what he was designing. For you guys who are in HVAC and no sheet metal work would be going, what the hell? He's into overkill, which to him it wasn't overkill because he's used to working on huge iron beams, big I-beams, square box beams, and you know, like 1/2 inch and 1 inch plate sheet metal, plate mail. So this is 16 gauge. If you could see the thickness of this, if you could focus on that, compared to my finger, this is 16. This thing must weigh close to 100 pounds for this little tiny air duct. And as you could see, rating it to the size of my hand, being nearly 100 pounds is quite difficult to work with. Very sharp edges, they're like little knives. This was his one attempt to completely close up the seam, but it was starting to overheat and wobble. So on his next one, it's just tack welded every so often, and we're going to use our mastic duct sealant to seal off and make sure all the air ducting is airtight. You can see some gaps of light inside there, but that will all be sealed up. And so this is our first prototype test piece he made. On the rest of them, I instructed him to drop the gauge down to 20 gauge so we can actually lift it and work with it. And because imagine, we had to make that whole unit while it was out here on the flat, and then we picked it up and we brought it over. If that was made out of this 20 gauge metal, that would be about 500 pounds. There would be no way the two of us would be shuffling this around very easily. Not to mention the insert sleeve that would probably drop in here will be close to 200 pounds just by itself, and that was just the sleeve, nothing more. So that's our pandemic, you could say, how would you put it, inability to find shops that are open that can make sheet metal now, and we're making do with what we have to keep going on with the job. Otherwise, this job would be shut down for another month or more. Not to mention, when we get back to the sheet metal shop, how backlogged they're probably going to be in work. They were already at the point that they told us they only can make one of these a week because they had so much work, because in this industry there's so much construction going on here right now that there's a shortage of sheet metal places that are backlogged. There's a shortage of contractors, there's a shortage of employees, and there's a shortage of HVAC contractors even to do all the work that is out there. So they were limiting us to one supply and one return per week, and that's all we could get out of them. And as you can see, we have a total of 6 that we need. And so this job was going to be spread out over roughly a 6-week period of time. And so our iron worker, who is doing our sheet metal right now, he has saved a day, and he's going to fabricate these. It'll be a little more difficult to work with, but it'll get the job done. Our client could get his project off and going, and we can get it finished for him, and for the rest of the year jump on to other jobs, and instead of waiting 2 more months to get this job finished. And that's it. Until next time, see you guys later.